could win with a ham sandwich. It's Owen Turtenwald.
It's Owen.
Samuel Garcia versus Josh Utter-Leyton here. Mono Blue Devotion versus Esper Control. We have our, I think Josh is in second place right now in the top 25.
Our defending player of the year.
Yes. And you also see his nice coat there from the Players Championships as well. So
complete and total master. I had the privilege of working with Josh in the last Pro Tour that I played in, and he as a deck builder and player is basically without peer. So
few do it better than the Raptor.
He is awesome.
Garcia has put his sunglasses on. He's ready for battle. He's playing Mono Blue Devotion. Josh playing Esper Control. Esper Control, one of the reasons that this deck is so popular now is that it does kind of put the hammer down on Mono Blue Devotion.
Yes. Mono Blue Devotion is not very robust against kind of spot removal. That's one of the best ways to attack it. Esper has that in spades. Mono Black does a better job of that. But Esper, no shortage of removal, a lot of sweepers, healthy amount of power. The Mono Blue Devotion deck can still get kind of these fish draws, or whatever you want to call them, of some pressure and some counter spells to disrupt you, and with the exception of Supreme Verdict, it can be challenging for the Esper deck to get out of those sort of draws. But I do like Esper a lot as a deck in the format and in this matchup as well.
So anything spicy about Josh's Esper deck? I know some people are moving towards Devour Flesh nowadays. I don't know if there's any other changes that are happening here.
He's got 2 Devour Fleshes, 2 Thoughtseize, it's pretty stock list, 2 Blood Baron, a second Aetherling, which is not necessarily industry standard.
Okay.
A lot of people play 1. Blood Baron in the main has become way more common recently.
Yeah.
So that would have been noteworthy a couple weeks ago, but I would say it's not noteworthy anymore.
Yeah, I mean, taking a look at Garcia's deck list, too, there's not really anything crazy here going on. His spells, of course, are Biden of Thassa, Cyclonic Rift. He's got Jace, Architect of Thought. All of those cards are 2-0s. He's got a bunch of creatures, obviously, to make the devotion count high, to make Master of Waves and Thassa good. He's got a Singleton Omen Speaker, 25 lands. He's got the 20 islands, 4 Mutavaults, and 1 Nykthos, Shrine of Nyx. His sideboard is a lot of 1 and 2-ofs. A Claustrophobia, a couple Wall of Frost, a couple Rapid Hybridization, stuff of that nature, a few counter spells and Gainsay and Negate, but nothing really out of the ordinary from either one of these players.
Yep. The second Biden, I guess, would qualify as kind of a different change of direction. The real lack of spells in his game 1 structure, but yeah. Nothing too outrageous here.
See, both players are going to take a look at their opening hands. You see Garcia's going to take at least 1 mulligan here. Utter-Leyton taking a look at, he's got some lands. I know he's got a Thoughtseize and a Azorius Charm hanging out over there. Of course, all of his lands are going to come in and play tap. And one of the things I'm going to be fascinated to actually see happen here is because even though I've been playing Esper a lot recently, I happened to I went X&2 in Seattle with it. I went 8-2, had a blast playing it the entire time. I am no Esper master, which will come as no surprise to you or anybody else at home. So one of the things I'm interested to watch is just to see how Josh sequences lands. Because I think that's one of the things that kind of sets Esper player apart is, when do you play the Temples versus when do you play the Ravnica lands tapped or untapped, and what order do you play those lands? And I think that's a really, really big deal into piloting the deck from being a pretty good pilot to a great pilot.
I also think if you can possibly do it, slow rolling the second white mana is important in a lot of places, because when people are determining whether or not they're going to play around Supreme Verdict, if you only have 1 white source, for me at least, that's often the tipping point of I'm not going to play around it because he might not even have double white.
Yep.
And slow rolling the second white source, it can be super sweet.
So there is a Judge's Familiar to start there for Garcia. Josh with just a Godless Shrine. You see Josh is going to be on the play. That means he lost game number 2. And, of course, we do know that he does have an Azorius Charm in his hand, so does he want to play a land untapped this turn? We know he has a Watery Grave, or does he just want to go Thoughtseize you, play a land tapped, or do nothing? He's just going to pass the turn back.
Yep. Wants a little more information, doesn't want his Thoughtseize to just run into a Judge's Familiar. He's not under that much pressure, so he can set up his mana, make his land drops. There's not a huge rush to just deploy all this stuff.
Now, one thing, if you're familiar with Seattle Magic, something Samuel Garcia doing right now is he's using encroachment.
Yes,
he's using more of the board than Josh. You see that he is taking up about 2/3 of the board right now.
Yeah, I call this Space Invaders.
Here is a Thoughtseize from Garcia. He's got a Nightfield Spectre, a Jace Architect of Thought, a Thassa, a Bident of Thassa. Excuse me, it's a Master of Waves, not a Thassa. He's got the Bident, he's got a Master, he's got an Island, the Jace, and then the Nightfield Spectre.
So I guess it's fairly common for Mono Blue Devotion decks to sideboard a little bit into a slightly longer game against Esper to try to, slog through all the attrition elements that they're going to be bringing in against you in the post-board games.
The Spectre's going to go away. A Black-White Temple is going to come into play. So there's your Scry. Utter-Leyton says, I'm going to keep it on top. I'm happy, happy. You see his hand. He's got a Doomblade. He's got a Blood Baron. He's got an Azorius Charm over there.
A lot of powerful tools.
And he's going to pass the turn back. One thing you're not going to do, you're not going to rush the Player of the Year.
No.
He is going to take his sweet time, making sure he does not make a single mistake.
Especially with you playing Space Invaders over there.
Yeah. If you're going to encroach, I'm going to take my time.
Right.
Josh going to draw his card. Looks like he kept the blue-black Temple on top, Temple of Deceit.
So Samuel's hand feels fairly susceptible to Blood Baron here. Just a fast Blood Baron.
Yeah, I mean, this is a card that is actually quite good against Mono Blue Devotion, and it makes it so that you don't have to worry so much about like drawing Aetherling and killing them that way. You can actually get something on the board and change the way that they have to play the game, as there's the 4th land off the top there for Garcia. So what 4-drop is he going to play? He's got Master, he's got Biden, he's got Jace.
I really like the setup from Josh. He's put himself in a position where he's thought seized away Samuel's 3-mana play. Now either 4-mana play that he makes, either if he plays Biden, then Josh can just, remove it with Azorius Charm. If it's Jace, that's also fine. He gives an opportunity to stick Blood Baron on basically an empty board.
Yeah, which is exactly what he wants to be. So Judge's Familiar gets into the red zone. Josh says Azorius Charm, that back to the top. I bet you're going to be happy drawing that card again, which is definitely not true. So now you can see Utter-Leyton, as you mentioned, just untap, play a 5th land untapped, take 2, slam Blood Baron down on what is an empty board, and just take over that way.
Yeah.
And I would be surprised to see that not be the case, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So Water Your Grave comes in. You see Blood Baron right onto Garcia's land. A fun battle of encroachment taking place here.
So much. This is what we call splitting the uprights.
Yeah.
Utter-Leyton here is.
So now,
and a huge Master of Waves.
Again, these are things that Josh knows
Yeah.
that Garcia has in his hand. So Judge's Familiar is going to come into play. Master of Waves with a devotion of 2, 3, 4. So you're going to get a bunch of elemental tokens. So we'll make sure we get the right ones out there for you guys. The Horsies. So there are going to be 4 of those. But you can see Utter-Leyton's hand. He's got a Doomblade and an Intention Sphere. Yeah, so he's not even worried. He's going to quickly untap. I'm very interested to see exactly where the Blood Baron's going to attack.
Right, he's running out of room.
Yeah, is he going to push through the islands?
Is he going to part the sea?
Yep. There's your Doomblade. I think Josh is more than happy to pay 1 more for that if he needs to.
I'll pay. I'll buy it at a high price.
Yeah, Judge's Familiar, that is a horrible Magic card. I just don't think it's good at all. I don't like that card. Never have.
I think it's the cost of doing business when you're trying to build a devotion deck.
I would agree with you there.
You have to play some of that kind of stuff.
I would agree with you there. Blood Baron going to come into the red zone. Doesn't split the uprights of those islands yet. I think in time. Time that may happen. Josh more than happy to pass the turn back. Not even concerned. Like he could Detention Sphere that Biden, but he just says, yeah, I'm perfectly fine. I'd rather maybe hold that Detention Sphere for a Thassa. Here's an Azorius Charm. Judge's Familiar can come back for more next turn. And 3 mana, there is Thassa, God of the Sea, which is probably why he was saving Attention Sphere.
One of the better tools against Esper.
Yep. Yeah. This is a card, I've played this matchup a decent amount leading up my preparation for the Invitational and for the SCG in Seattle. It's actually like their best card against you.
Yep.
Let's obviously control the draw step, indestructible, deals a huge chunk of damage. You just don't want that thing to ever get out of control. You want to get that thing off the table as soon as you can. Here's a Detention Sphere doing exactly that. And Blood Baron going to come across for 4 more, putting Utter-Leyton up to a healthy life total, and Garcia's is quickly winding down.
Yep. It's really hard to beat Esper with just a mixture of, all these 4 and 5 mana spells. It is really important to get on the board fast.
Yeah.
Because they're going to outpower you no matter what when you're doing that kind of stuff.
Jace Architect of Thought's going to turn over another Judge's Familiar, a Nykthos, and an Island. So Josh is going to split these up. Let's see exactly how he feels about this. If he just wants to have it be, you can have Judge's Familiar or the lands, which is exactly what he's going to do. It's a promotional Judge's Familiar.
Yep.
That's what that is.
Someone played during game day or something.
Yeah. And it looks like I think he's going to put those lands by the wayside. And, we talked a little bit earlier today about Azorius Charm and people kind of moving away from that card. Christian Alcano saying it's a card he actually doesn't want in his Esper deck at all anymore. As you see, he's actually going to keep the lands as Garcia puts a Nykthos into play. But this is where you kind of see the power of Azorius Charm, because it's basically been a double time walk this game.
Well, the power of Azorius Charm is it's always the card that you need.
Yeah.
It's, it helps you find your land drops. It staves off beat down decks. Also, the lifelink mode also is valuable in closing out games against beatdown decks. And again, it's just never dead. It's not always the most efficient tool to be doing everything, but what is, you know?
Yeah. See, Blood Baron says, I'm going to take down Jace. Judge's Familiar wanted to get in the way, but Judge's Familiar is white, and that's not going to happen. Now, here's a Jace from Utter-Leyton, and Jace is going to go -2 style. Supreme Verdict, Island Plains. Verdict versus, says Garcia. We'll get that bigger die out there for you on the Jace. And there it is. Does Josh want lands, or does he want Verdict? He says, I want lands.
Yeah, when both decks have Jace Archetype of the Thought, I would much rather be the deck flipping over Supreme Verdicts and not the deck flipping over Judge's Familiars.
Detention Sphere takes care of the Bident. Utter-Leyton knows Garcia's hand right now of a land. There's just a Judge's Familiar, so he is playing virtually with perfect information. Patrick and I in the booth, along with you guys at home, know that Garcia has one land that he can play and one more in the hand. So,
and Josh in firm control here.
Yeah.
I don't see a way really for Samuel to get out of this.
And honestly, this is really how this matchup goes a lot of the time. If Thassa doesn't surely show up to the party very early on turn 3 or Nightfield Spectre or something of that nature, this is oftentimes how things go. It's very, very easy for the Esper deck to get control. Now, it always doesn't revolve around a turn 5 Blood Baron and really pressuring the opponent, but a lot of the time they just have a good, healthy amount of control over the game.
Yep. And when you force Esper to play on its own turn at sorcery speed and react to the board, Esper is a very beatable deck.
Yeah.
When you allow it to untap and use its reactive elements against you, its instance on your own turn, it's a really hard deck to beat.
Yeah. Josh ticked his Jace up. Judge Familiar comes in. Josh says, I remember the trigger for my Jace, so that Judge Familiar is a 0-1. I'm going to cash in my Jace. Let's take a look at the top 3 cards of my deck. I've got a Sphinx's Revelation and 2 Jaces.
Oh.
Best of luck splitting those up.
I wouldn't stress about that one too much.
Yeah. So Josh is going to, I believe he took the Revelation there.
Yeah.
Put the Jaces on the bottom. In comes the Blood Baron for 4 more. Utter-Leyton going to move up to 34. Garcia down to 4. Some people on Twitter at home not a big fan of Garcia's encroachment approach.
Oh, I mean, we're well into personal foul territory.
This is 15 yards?
This is no longer simply encroachment. We're well into taunting at this point.
I see. It's all right. If you're not a Seattle magician, you're not familiar with the encroachment style. And Utter-Leyton says, that's it and that's all. So Josh Utter-Leyton is going to win this match 2-1 over Samuel Garcia. Esper control, defeating Mono Blue Devotion, as it happens to do on occasion.
Yeah, there's a lot of matchups where Esper might